Hi, my name is Mark Biernot, and I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to use a metaphor and talk about the Russian economic racket. The Russian racket. First, I'm going to define what a racket is with the history of rackets. Then I'm going to use a metaphor, and the question is this metaphor applicable? It's a question to you. Is it applicable to the situation in Russia and the Russian people and the Russian government? It's an amazing story, so stay tuned. So first, what is a racket? Well, in simplest terms, a racket is simply that, let's say in the 1920s during Prohibition or whatever, 30s, there were these little old ladies with a storefront of a pharmacy. And they were all smiling and happy and presented themselves well, but in the back, in the bathtub, they were brewing something, gin, let's say. Okay, so that's a racket, that you show one face presentable to the public to do transactions in business, and in the back you're doing bad stuff. Metaphorically, that's what a racket is on one level. But here's a better story. There, in my county, it's almost unbelievable. In my county, in the sheriff's office in my county, the director of finance was arrested and is now serving, I think, 7 years. Okay, she was all happy. She was presenting herself well, dressed well, making friends, shaking hands. But she embezzled somewhere near around $1 million. And she was doing this very methodically. Now, to the front store, she looked great, but she was doing something bad in the back end. And here's the kicker. Her husband is in the sheriff's office. He's still there, I think. He was like one of the top detectives. He should know better. He was sharing the same bedroom, sharing the same tax returns, sharing the same household. And he was like ace detective, okay? He claimed, I don't know anything, I'm innocent, I'm a victim, or whatever he claimed. So all the rap went on her. Now, the question to you is, metaphorically, how is this like the Russian government and people? Is it not the same? On one hand, the Russian government presents themselves to European powers or whoever powers, or they have, dressed well, presenting themselves, we are a legitimate government, when we know that they're not. In the back, they're doing something bad. Or now, not even in the back, they're doing it blatantly, geopolitical things right in front of the world to see. But here's the other question. The people of Russia, the people living in Russia, endogenous to this whole system, aren't they aware? Is that not like the husband? I mean, what do you think? Do you think he was aware? Aren't they aware everything that they've done over the last 20 years and in that household and everything in the household of Russia, in the house of Russia, what's been going on? Are you telling me they're oblivious to that? Okay, that's the legitimate question. And if they are, ignorance, maybe there's no they say ignorance is no justification under the law, but on the other hand, Plato is saying ignorance is, ultimately truth is the ultimate goal because you want to wash away this cloud of ignorance. But I'm skeptical. I think they knew about it. I think the Russian people knew about it. I think, just opinion, that sheriff knew about it, okay? How can you not? It's so close to home. And the Russian government has been doing very bad things geopolitically for 20 years straight. Yes, in 2012, the Russian people were chanting, down with Putin, but that fizzled out pretty quickly. So if I was a Russian, aren't you responsible to some extent? So you have a few options. You can either escape Russia, you can escape and donate to humanitarian causes, let's say in Ukraine, and that's a very legitimate thing to do. I would respect that. I'd respect that the most. Second, escaping, and third, just staying in there and continuing with the racket, saying we're little people, we can't do anything, we can't effectuate change, we can't make the world a better place. That's not the way. That's not the attitude. That's not the attitude I would do if I was in Russia. I would either escape and give to humanitarian causes, or I would do something within Russia behind the scenes. I would not let this racket continue because it's their history, their present, and their future. In the future, history will cast judgment. They're creating their own history, and for future generations to look back on. I would want to be on the right side of history. Okay, and what's the cost? You could lose something. You could even lose, your life or something. But Wouldn't you want to be on the right side of history? Isn't that what it's about, to make this all working together, the collective unconsciousness, to make the world a better place? So, eliminate these rackets. Rackets in the time of the 1920s, 1930s, it was a much clearer definition of racket, but isn't that a racket today? That there's two rackets, that the Russian government presents itself to Western powers, and the second racket is the people we're victims of Russia, and we don't know anything. That's a double racket. And then when it gets reformatted, they'll say, "Oh, yes, we were on the side all along." But what's the evidence? What is the proof? So that's my video on the Russian economic racket. It's like this thing that you stay out of the government's way and let them do the geopolitical mess, and we'll stay out of your life. And that's the implicit agreement I talk about a lot between the Russian people and the Russian government. But the Russian people have responsibility, because that is an agreement, and it is implicit, but it's pretty explicit at this point. And if you want to be part of that racket, you have to take responsibility. Because, again, the goal of humanity is to make the world a better place. That's the Russian economic racket. My name is Mark Biranot. Have a great day. Thank you very much.